I was just checking in to make sure you all saw and heard me.
Supervisor Anderson, we can see and hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good morning. I will now call the July 20th, 2022 regular meeting to order. I know Supervisor Desmond is unable to join us today, but knowing that, let me ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Before I call the roll, I'd like to note for the record that all supervisors are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote today. With that, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson.
Here.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Here.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas here.
And Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher here. First on the agenda is non-agendized public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on subject matters within our jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. The only action the board may take is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. A reminder, according to Rule 4A, members of the public that are non-English speaking and need interpretation assistance will receive additional time to facilitate translation. And according to our rules of procedure, we will hear from the first 10 speakers via phone. Any remaining non-agendized public communication will be heard at the close of today's meeting. I'll ask the clerk to call forward up to 10 non-agendized public speakers at this time.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We do have 8 total requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. For those that have requested to speak, please dial into the conference line now using those instructions that were provided to you. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I would like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We will begin with our first caller. And again, if you could please state your name before beginning your comments.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow supervisors. This is Richard Bailey, the Mayor of Coronado. I understand this is a special meeting with a very light agenda, and I would not typically speak unless this matter was of critical importance to our region. Today, I'm speaking on behalf of the City of Coronado and also Mayor Serge Stedina of Imperial Beach for an overview of the County of San Diego's DEHQ water quality testing methodologies, policies, and impacts to both Coronado and IB. By way of background, water quality testing is the responsibility of the County of San Diego, and California State recognizes 2 different water quality testing methodologies. One is a bacteria-based culture, which was used prior to May 5th, 2022 for the previous couple decades, and the other is a new test, a DNA-based test. The county maintains the thresholds for closures with these 2 tests are equivalent. Historically, beach closures during the summer months in both Imperial Beach and Coronado are relatively rare. We typically see closures occur during non-summer months, dependent on the weather conditions. The current situation is that prior to May 5th, 2022, the bacteria culture test was used, and there was a threshold that was rarely triggered during the summer months. However, from May 5th through June 30th, there's a DNA-based test went into effect, and beaches in Coronado were closed 1 in 4 days. Fortunately, the county conducted comparison testing between the bacteria culture test and the DNA-based test. So what did we find? The comparison testing showed that Coronado's water quality passed the bacteria culture test every single day. In other words, although the DNA test was resulting in closures 1 in 4 days in Coronado, our beaches would not have been closed a single day under the test that had been in effect for 20 plus years. Beginning July 1st, the county updated their policies for closures again. Beaches are now presently allowed to be open, even if bacteria threats for both tests.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next speaker.
Kevin Stevenson. Hi, yes. So I'm actually a little bummed that Jim Desmond was not able to make it to this meeting because I think it's rather important that he knows about a certain individual who lives in his district. A certain individual by the name of David Chittick, who owns a local business in Escondido called Coffee, spelled Koffie, or as I like to refer to it, KK Coffee, because this guy was literally on the steps of the Capitol during the U.S. insurrection and posted a photo on his Instagram account for his business with 3 cups with the letter K on them next to each other. So just to give you an idea of where his beliefs stand. Anyways, the reason I want to draw attention to this individual is because he's recently been posting some threats on his social media. He's been threatening other businesses in Escondido for wanting to hold or host drag shows because he's part of the, all Democrats are groomers, all gay people are groomers, all trans people are groomers cult. It's worth mentioning he's part of the Awakened Church, so that makes a lot of sense, unfortunately. And he has been posting to his followers to target these people. And the LGBTQ plus community in North County is being targeted. So I would love for Jim Desmond to publicly condemn this guy. But then again, David Chittick, he recently ran for Congress, and at least he alleges on his Instagram account for his campaign that Jim Desmond actually endorsed him in his campaign run. Now, thankfully, he did not make it to the top 2. Thankfully, he got less than 10% of the vote.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next speaker.
Oliver Twist here, coming before you yet again to seek restoration of our First Amendment rights via changing Rule 4F to allow respectful, responsive clapping in chambers. In Landry v. Daley, the court commented regarding public meetings and a host of other activities, quote, the happy cacophony of democracy would be stilled if all, quote, improper noises in the normal meaning of the term were suppressed. Clapping was also found to be equated with pure speech. Here's an excerpt from California Supreme Court case precedent in Ray K. Quote, audiences, activities such as heckling, interrupting, harsh questioning, and booing, even though they may be impolite and discourteous, can nonetheless advance the goals of the First Amendment. For many citizens, such participation in public meetings, whether supportive or critical of the speaker, may constitute the only manner in which they can express their views to a large number of people. The court continued, disturbances of meetings arise in a variety of forms. The modern techniques of the politics of peaceful confrontation frequently result in a clash of ideological expressions, which may in a sense disturb a meeting. Without a doubt, petitioner's conduct in the instant case, including clapping, was closely akin to pure speech. While restrictions are allowed at times, they must be narrowly tailored and leave open ample alternative channels for communication and self-expression. Clapping is an essential feedback mechanism widely accepted to be signifying approval. Clapping also serves as a robust modality for amplification of a given message, a method of communication via its immediacy, which cannot be achieved by any other alternative channel. Our voices and our clapping have an integral role in the marketplace of free speech and ideas. Please revise Rule 4F to rescind the arbitrary ban on clapping and restore our happy cacophony of democracy to this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Consuelo, to the people, they exploit the minorities. They don't give a shit about the trannies, the Hispanics, the women, or the blacks. They destroy what we have worked so hard for. They continue to tax us up the wazoo. There's an agenda here, and they are most definitely fulfilling it. The World Economic Forum is not just a meeting. It's a club, it's a movement and a club, and we ain't in it. The time is now, people. Government is just a big, fat, fucking racket. They only divide and destroy. Don't buy into their propaganda. Pay attention. Be prepared. They're coming for our water. They don't want a self-sustaining, critically thinking people. They want dependent, clueless slaves. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Hi, Supervisors. Paul Henkin here. In San Diego County, since the pandemic began, there have been over about 8,500 confirmed cases of the virus and 5,300 deaths for a fatality rate of 0.6%. It sounds like COVID is now calling the shots, and it's going and the disease keeps outrunning the boost.
Sir, you're coming in and out. We can't hear you on your phone. We can barely hear you. We'll go to the next caller and come back.
I use the name Audra. I hope you let Paul call back and actually speak his piece. This is a great way for you guys to not hear anything anybody has to say. Yeah, Consuelo's right, except for they're coming after your water, your guns, your food, your children, everything about it. And these elections have been stolen. We need to be demanding that they look into the machines. They refuse to do it. The EAC is not recertifying machines. The DHS is a part of the EAC and running it. Everything is a big old conspiracy. And CYTL is spelled SCYTL. It is foreign election interference that's going on that needs to be looked into. We need to demand from these supposed officials this information and that they have their elections, that they get rid of the machines. We need to be sending affidavits to the sheriff to demand that these machines get taken. The AFL-CIO, which is the unions, picks the electors. We know that Lorena Gonzalez is in charge of the unions here. What a surprise. But this is treason. If we don't get back 2020, the election, it will be lost. We have until September. If we don't fix the past, the future ones won't be fixed, and we will be stuck with whoever they continue to pick to put into place to rule over us, supposedly. It is a facade. This is not a democracy, but we are in a constitutional republic. People need to get that straight. Otherwise, you're going to continue to let these people cheat and do all of these things to us. And refusal to look into these machines, Nathan, and all of these supervisors make you complicit in fraud. You're just as guilty as the ones actually doing the flipping of the votes. And so that's treason. You guys will all be held accountable for this. But if you actually cared about the people, you would look into it and make sure that these machines aren't used for the next elections. Everybody needs to make sure that you demand a fair elections or don't vote the next time. Because if you continue...
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next caller. Going back to Paul Heineken, you will have 1 minute left.
Hi.
Please go ahead. You have 1 minute left. Chair Fletcher, that caller seems to be having audio difficulties and has dropped off. We'll go to the next caller.
Mike Borello. For over a year, I've addressed the supervisors and county HHS on COVID-19 vaccine injuries. I've submitted reports containing substantial evidence that estimate the extent of death and injury caused by COVID-19 vaccines. HHS has not once rebutted, commented, or offered counter evidence on the matter. On or about July 7, Dr. Robert Malone published a two-part expose titled, "What to Do with a Problem Like HHS." Malone indicts HHS as one of the many out-of-control arms of the administrative state that by colluding with corporate partners and media interests achieve their primary goal of profit. Rico suave. The FDA approving COVID-19 vaccines for children under 5 is just one example of their corruption. It's clear the FDA received no proper evidence the vaccines could offer any benefit and even more disturbing potential harms. They sacrificed our precious children to this grand surrealistic experiment. The promoters, including this board, county HHS, and their parents, have damned themselves to hell. The slaughter of the innocents. Quote, when Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under. Today, 29,460 deaths, 32,774 life-threatening events, and a total of over 1.3 million adverse events reported in bears. Pharma and the FDA claim the benefits outweigh the risks, but the claim is inconsistent with the data offered. A recent SSRN preprint by Freeman and others indeed show the opposite. No more vaccines, no more masks, no more emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
This is Truth. Last Saturday, I got to witness where $50,000 in ARPA money approved on June 28th went. That is, to the Pride Parade. Nathan was able to pay for a gas-guzzling truck, not an electric car as usual, leading his contingent with a banner, a drag queen on rollerblades holding his sign, along with his people walking in LGBTQ liberation shirts with iron fist flags. Nathan himself was, of course, a no-show, and his representatives received a total of 0 applause from the audience. Nora was able to pay for a banner and her people walking with flags. Nora herself was, of course, a no-show, and her representatives received very little, almost inaudible applause from the audience. I also saw that District Attorney Summer Stephan was able to pay for a red sports car parading down, with no Summer Stephan actually in the car, of course. Another no-show who received no applause. The county's LGBTQ&A employee resource group also marched, and there was a county bus used to represent the library. The parade was very political, including Nora's friends, Planned Parenthood, who handed out condoms. Can't have more babies out there, of course. I also saw a City of San Diego garbage truck parade down, complete with rainbow-painted tires and a rainbow flag covering the garbage entrance. A garbage truck. Also well represented with a few different contingents was the Southern California branch of the Satanic Temple, complete with devil horns on their blood-red truck. Talk about money well spent on a plan alleged to rescue America. And for the record, very few people wore masks.
Thank you. We'll go back to our final caller of the morning. You have 1 minute to finish addressing the board, Mr. Hankin.
Thank you. Paul Hinkin here. So COVID's now calling the shots and becoming endemic, now outrunning the boosters. And it's now a big cold in the UK. BA5 and 4 and 5 account for most COVID. Causes like runny nose, sore throat, headache, persistent cough and fatigue. Not really a big thing. And by the way, you need to rein in the paranoid schools who mandate masking. It needs to be a choice. And, with a 0.6% death rate, where's the emergency? Shouldn't we be prioritizing other diseases? And when did these deaths actually occur? Hospital reporting lags behind, and you owe it to us. Were they actually from COVID, or were they from...
Thank you. Your time is up. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning.
All right, thank you. I'd like to clarify for the record that drag queens and my contingent of pride were on roller skates, not roller blades. I know we take great pride in being accurate here at the county. Next on our agenda is approval of the statement of proceedings and minutes for the regular meeting of June 28, 2022, the regular meeting of June 29, 2022, and the special meeting of June 29, 2022. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Let me ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed with today's agenda. We only have one item for consideration, authorized continuance of teleconference public meetings. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Let me ask the clerk to please call forward our public speakers on our one item today.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 8 total requests to speak by phone. I'd also like to note for the record that we did receive 2 e-comments on this item. Both of those were in opposition. For any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you that to begin your comments after the beep. You will then have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record. I'd like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller.
Oliver Twist here. I'm calling in opposition to continued teleconferencing. I saw 3 of you posting photos on social media of yourselves this weekend at a special event with an attendance of up to 250,000 people. So I'm wondering if you even see the glaring incongruity and questionable optics of attending a mass gathering of such epic scale while just 4 days later being set to vote on continuing teleconferencing because of supposed ongoing state of emergency, one that is, as indicated by your actions, in name only. There is also the issue of amplification. San Diego Unified will use your action today as a show of support for their continued masking of our children, a demographic which is the least vulnerable to COVID, but absolutely the most vulnerable to impairment and harm to language development. Another glaring contradiction is this board's majority stance on the continued need to teleconference, while a while back you brought forth an item to place a legislative representative in Washington, D.C., because being there in person was essential to the board's business. It again seems lost on you, the double standard that the board's own activist interests must be pursued in person in Washington, but the people's business is okay to be conducted via remote teleconferencing. Lastly, I want to address the huge issue of transparency and accountability when it comes to teleconferencing. At the board meeting on June 15th, the clerk announced that Tara would be joining via teleconference, but only 11 seconds later, she did not even answer the room call. That calls into question what time she did join exactly, and was there a quorum during that first speaker as Joel had gotten up. If you were going to continue to vote to teleconference, then this body needs to implement far better protocols, including a policy that requires teleconferencing participants to show live screenshots of themselves at all times. We see your names there. Are you even there? So the public can clearly see that you really are there paying attention. This means not just a name display or a placeholder picture, but real-time live screenshots.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next caller.
Username Audra. Yeah. I love, Nathan, how you wanted to get that misinformation out of the way right off the bat. That was really good of you to clarify that, because nothing I said was misinformation, right? Good to know. So you should be looking into those machines. Anyway, we know that there's a lockdown coming on July 29th for Los Angeles, and that wants to continue down to San Diego. And you've already allowed children at SDUSD to be masked again. You refuse to even do anything about that. We're not in a state of an emergency. The fact that you want to vote on these teleconference meetings when you're supposed to vote on a state of an emergency every 7 days, yet you're going to go 45 days. Actually, probably more than that. It could be 2 months. Interesting. but yet you want to perpetuate this. And Ryan, why are you wearing a freaking mask when nobody's in there with you? It's a little weird, isn't it? Or is that your guys' way of going to push that back into the county and make sure that we all go on a lockdown again, wear masks, so that you can make sure that every child gets a bioweapon in their body and can be destroyed? Because we know that you loved when babies are ripped apart limb by limb and die. So at some point, you guys are going to realize that less government is way better for the people, and that we have the right to abolish the government when they go against the people, which is what you're doing. So know that your days in those seats or wherever you're at right now are numbered, and you will not continue to destroy San Diego because the people are going to rise up. Once we start focusing on the same thing, all we have to do is manifest our reality, and all of these people will go back to where they came from, which is a hole under the rock and a place in hell where there is no way out.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Hi, Supervisors. Paul Henkin again. The Brown Act, Section 54953, subsection 3, says each teleconference location shall be identified in the notice and agenda of the meeting or proceeding. We, the people, should know that you, the board, are in the county tending to our business and not schmoozing with tax and spend lobbyists. And by the way, there's nothing about your identifying your personal address as has been suggested as the reason why you're doing this, even though it doesn't take much to find it. If you're paranoid about it, you're in the wrong business. You have not identified the locations of the members of the board, either in the notice or the agenda, when a member is at an outside location. Is it the home, the office, the park? Not sure if it's even in the county, or even when asked. And I asked where Tara was, and no one answered. If you cannot follow this simple requirement, I cannot support continuance of teleconferencing, especially when public access to meetings is restricted. Thank you for your attention.
Hypocrite.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Mike Borello. So I strongly agree that teleconferencing should be indefinitely continued, but only as a supplemental means for community participation. I do not support teleconference as a replacement for in-person discussion, even during the so-called emergency order. If the person wishing to participate is indeed sick, they should, on their own recognizance, stay at home. If a person is disabled and unable to travel, they should have the opportunity to participate. In any event, teleconferencing provides value to public discussion, but only if it is not the sole means. Any metrics regarding public health should not be an excuse to restrict means of public discourse. Public discourse is a critical link by which information is communicated to other members of the community and received by the board for consideration in policy decisions. There was a reason that unabridged free speech and the right to peacefully assemble and petition our government for a redress of grievances was given the status of our #1 amendment in the Constitution. The founders recognized it as the foundation of liberty and freedom. When means of communication are curtailed, it strengthens control of government and weakens the power of the public they serve. Those in government that purposely engineer ways to skirt the First Amendment are not serving the people, but rather satisfying their own thirst for power. Govern yourselves accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Kevin Stevenson. So I should not have to tell people this, but COVID cases have been on the rise recently with the new variant BA.5. BA.5 is more contagious than the last Omicron variant, and from what I've been reading, it's quite possibly more vaccine resistant. So, frankly, it is stupid for anyone to be against teleconferencing for any reason right now. But, okay, let's ignore COVID for a minute. Let's pretend there isn't a deadly pandemic that has claimed the lives of over 1 million Americans over the last 2 years. Teleconferencing also increases turnout. It increases participation in government meetings of any body, especially when you consider the fact that San Diego County is a big county. In terms of diameter, driving from the international border to Oceanside, that's what, like 50 miles? And driving from Oceanside to the desert is even more than that. It's probably like 80 miles, 100 miles. So San Diego County is a big place. It doesn't make any logical sense for people from Valley Center and Fallbrook to have to come in person to a meeting in downtown San Diego. That does not make any sense. You would only be in favor of getting rid of teleconferencing if you wanted to silence people with a lower income, with less free time on their hands to sit all day in the chambers of the county administration building waiting to speak and spew some rando conspiracy theory you read on 4chan or heard on One America News Network or whatever.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next caller.
Truth. Hey, Freeple, I can't get it straight. It was Pride. How's the vacation going, Nathan? Why was this meeting today approved in the June 28th consent calendar? And why was it scheduled on a Wednesday, which is usually reserved for land use meetings? For the record, about a week ago, on Audra's radio show, in fact, I said this item sounds like COVID again. On Valentine's Day 2020, the fraudulent health emergency was declared by a one Wilma Wonka. Of course, these 2 years, you supervisors couldn't just take Oliver Twist's recommendation to put hybrid meetings into the standard rules and procedures rather than waste all of our time. To think that the county right now has a child's contest going to find the best vaccine propaganda artist, with a prize being a meet and greet with the aforementioned lying Wilma, what a ripoff. I'm not sure if I'm still young enough to enter, but I'm sure not brainwashed enough to win. According to this item, we're heading towards 3 years of lies. It all continues to be a sick joke, with the sideshows collecting the COVID checks.
Thank you. Your time is up. Chair Fletcher, that concludes public testimony on this item.
All right. Thank you to everyone that remotely and virtually called in to oppose the ability to remotely and virtually comment. We appreciate it. We have a motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Let me ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
No.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes with Supervisor Anderson voting no, all other supervisors who are present voting aye.
That concludes the business before the board today. We hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you at our next scheduled meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. The next regular meeting of the board will take place on Tuesday, August 16th at 9 a.m.